As the second part of my Citizen Path assignment for this course, I made a video for you all to elaborate more on the content of my social media engagement blog posts. The topic I chose to explore is environmental justice. I learned a lot about this topic by doing more in-depth research on environmental justice that built upon what we had already discussed in class, and then I researched examples of environmental injustice issues across the world to gain more contextual knowledge. To start, I'm going to talk about some key terms and their definitions, as well as some environmental justice basics, and then I'll present on some real-world issues that I went over in my blog post. I hope you can learn a lot from this format. I know I did. First, we need to understand what environmental justice is. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. This goal will be achieved when everyone enjoys the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards, and equal access to the decision-making process to have a healthy environment in which to live, learn, and work. Some examples of environmental justice issues include things like where our waste and pollution goes, the location of industry sites that contribute to water and air pollution, greenhouse gas emissions, resource consumption and access, and much more. In fact, most of the environmental issues we face globally have environmental justice aspects to them. What causes environmental injustice, you might ask? Environmental injustice is a social problem. It is caused by economics, sociopolitics, discrimination, and the hierarchy of our society. When analyzing these injustices, we must ask, who is harmed the most in this situation? Who benefits the most from this situation? And who has the power in both causing the problem and fixing the problem? We will engage with the following environmental justice issues by using these questions as a framework to help us break down these issues. Finally, before we start learning about real-world environmental issues, I'm going to give you an overview of methods people use to take action against environmental injustices. The first way is litigation and direct intervention. This is taking action using the legal system. Another action is research and technology, where innovation is used to solve the problem. The third way to make a change is education and outreach. This is when you take action to teach others about the problem you or your community is facing. A different option is mediation and voluntary collective action, when people come together to work towards solving the problem outside of the legal system. Economics is also a factor in creating change. When there is a positive or negative monetary incentive to do something or to stop doing something, most profit-driven organizations will change their practices. The last method for creating change that I'll discuss today is policy and regulation. With this method, laws, regulations, and policies are made so that the problem is addressed. We will come back to these tools for change to discuss what action has been or is being taken against the environmental injustices we're about to learn about. I wanted to start with an environmental injustice issue that almost everybody in the U.S. is familiar with, the Flint, Michigan water crisis. In 2013, to cut costs, the city of Flint, Michigan began pumping water from the Flint River, a currently and historically polluted river, to use as city water until a new pipeline from Lake Huron could be built. The river water is highly corrosive and wasn't being treated, so the lead in the city's aging water pipes seeped into the water that supplied the residents of Flint, Michigan. The lead caused smelly, flammable, discolored, undrinkable water. The citizens of Flint were left with no water. Many people who had ingested or bathed in the contaminated water had health problems immediately or soon following. Today, the problem is on a slow path to being resolved as the water pipes are being replaced. The levels of lead sampled in Flint are below the federal action threshold, but no amount of lead is safe in water. So let's go back to those questions from the beginning. Who is harmed? The citizens of Flint, Michigan were the most harmed party in this case. The majority of Flint's population is black, and 45% of citizens live under the poverty line. Who benefits? The city of Flint, Michigan initially benefited because they began pumping water from the Flint River to cut costs, but later, the city and officials came under fire for the issue. The city of Flint, Michigan also had the power in creating and fixing the problem. Now, what tools for change have been used in Flint, Michigan? A major method of change in this case is voluntary collective action. Flint residents protested and organized to create a large presence on social media about the injustice, which received attention from major news outlets. Another method of change is litigation and direct intervention. In 2016, a group of Flint community members sued officials for access to safe drinking water. In November of that year, a federal judge sided with them and mandated that free bottled water must be delivered door to door. And in March of 2017, a settlement was reached that required the state to fund the replacement of all lead pipes. Now, let's move across the world to the Narmada River in India to examine our next environmental injustice issue. Renewable energy is generally thought of as a good thing, but how does it affect the people who live near where it's being collected? The Narmada River in India is 808 miles long and runs through 3 Indian states. People who live near this river have been opposed to dam projects on the river since the 1980s. Despite the opposition, a project with plans to build 2 megadams and another dam on the Narmada River has started. Who is harmed from this project? The people who live near the project's building sites on the river are most harmed, especially the displaced people who live on cultivated land. These people are facing loss of biodiversity, flooding, and crop damage. Who benefits from this project? The companies involved in the project benefit. There are 6 large companies from all around the world that are involved in this project. The people who will have access to the electricity generated by the dams are also benefiting, as well as those who are employed in building the dams and managing them once they're operational. Similar to Flint, Michigan, parties who benefit from the issue also hold the power. The power is held by the government and the large companies involved in the project. What has been done to combat this issue? The main method of change being used in this case is voluntary collective action. Locals on the river started the Save the Narmada movement. There have been many protests and other group efforts to combat this project. In some cases, litigation has also been used. The last environmental injustice issue that I will be presenting today revolves around the Ahafo gold deposits in Ghana. Mining is a massive environmental issue that also greatly affects the communities and people whose land is being mined or who live near the mines. In Ghana, the Ahafo gold deposits are being exploited by a company called Newmont Ghana Gold Limited, or NGGL, which is owned by Newmont Mining Corporation. The presence of the gold deposits motivated NGGL to dispossess farmers and communities of their ancestral lands. NGGL displaced around 9,500 Ghanaians in just the beginning of the ongoing project. For many Ghanaians, this displacement meant that they did not have access to the same resources as they did before, and they will not be able to maintain the same quality of life. Every time this mining project expands, NGGL relocates more people. They compensate those that they are relocating, but the compensation amount is non-negotiable. Who is harmed by this project? The relocated Ghanaians are being harmed by the exploitation of these gold deposits. They are being forced to accept non-negotiable compensation for their displacement, and many of these communities have lived on the land for a long time. When they relocate, they may not have access to the same quality of life that they once did. Who benefits from this mining project? Newmont Mining Corporation benefits from this because they are extracting a profitable resource and are being allowed to move whomever they need to complete this project at a set rate of monetary compensation. Who has the power in this situation? Newmont Mining Corporation has power over the communities because they are being allowed to displace people to exploit the gold deposits. The Resettlement Negotiations Committee also has power in this case because they work with NGGL to decide how much to compensate people for relocation, and again, this monetary amount cannot be negotiated. What has been done to change this injustice? While this situation has generated justifiable anger, the scope of the mobilization against it is limited. It seems like the method of change generating the most results is research into the development of alternatives by an organization called UMN. This research has helped communities propose alternatives and changes to how things are being done that would better their situation. By examining individual examples of environmental injustices and environmental issues that community and people have worked together to change, we can learn more about environmental justice overall and how to get involved in issues that matter to us. Breaking each problem down into terms of who is most harmed, who benefits most, and who has the power opens our eyes to the key actors that must be identified for any of the tools for change to work. Looking at how people succeeded in changing issues in their own communities and at how some methods of change work better than others can provide us with a roadmap to work towards environmental justice. Here are my references. Thank you for watching.